this episode of the Weekday Saints podcast, we had an amazing opportunity to talk to Miss Tamekia Brewer, one of the co-owners of Nouveau Realty, as she showed us how God would land her into the field of real estate and use trust and communication to teach her lessons that will change the legacy and impact of all of her clients from now until forever. Tamekia shared with us how her love for selling homes and providing legacy opportunity to families have helped to shape her own story. And so we're excited for you to dive into this conversation with us. Welcome back to another episode of the Weekday Saints podcast, where we feature and highlight everyday Chattanoogans showing the testimonies of how God shows up in their lives. I am LaQuisha Ewan, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jonathan Ingram.
Good to be your co-host.
Listen, we have a awesome asset to Chattanooga in the person of Tamekia Brewer here. And we really just want people to know who you are today. And so we thank you for coming on. And we just want you to kind of talk to us a little bit about who you are. Do you have family here? Are you born and raised here? A little bit about you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, LaQuisha, for inviting me and asking me to be a part of this. When I received the text message, I was just like, oh, wow, this is going to be exciting. So whatever you guys want to know, I'm here. Let's do it.
All right.
So are you from Chattanooga originally?
I am born and raised from my parents. They've been together actually since 9th grade in high school.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm born and raised here in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
You grew up all over or just a specific part?
Grew up in the South Side. That's
Okay.
where my mom grew up at, out there in Macaulay Homes, as they called it back then. She always reminds me is Huffaker Street.
Huffaker Street. Okay.
Out there in Macaulay Homes. So out on the South Side, grew up out there. Then my mom and dad, they moved across town. And so here I am.
Love it. I love it. And you have a son?
I do. Jacob.
Jacob.
That's my baby. He's not a baby
I was
anymore.
like, ain't no baby.
He's not a baby anymore. He's 13. He will be 14 in October.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I have a teenager.
So you have a teenager.
He can be a teenager and be your baby at the same time.
At the same time. Of course, when they want something, they're your baby.
That's right.
Right. That's a whole nother podcast.
Another
Weekday Saints
podcast.
Parents Edition.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So talk to the listeners a little bit about the work that you do. Like what has your professional vocation track look like?
Wow, where do I start? So let's go back before I got into real estate. Before I got into real estate, I worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee.
Okay.
I worked there. Then I left that particular employment and went to Erlanger Health System.
Okay.
I was there. I was the patient advocate for the entire health system, not only just here, but it was all the Erlanger Health Systems. And I made sure that the families were taken care of while they were in the hospital. If they had any medical issues or hospital stay issues, they came directly to my department, and I took care of that for the families.
Okay.
So as time went on, at the time, Jacob's father was getting ill. He got ill. I took on a part-time job at Belk. And I said, God, okay, if something happens to him, what am I going to do? So I prayed about it. As I was working at Belk, I ran into a classmate. And I said, hey, long time no see. She said, what do you do? I said, what are you doing now? She said, I'm a realtor. I said, really? I said, I've been thinking about that. So time went on. She gave me her contact information, told me who I needed to contact, so fast forward. So I didn't think nothing about it. So I ran into another person that I hadn't seen in a while. I said, hey, it's been a while. What? I'm a realtor. I said, okay, guy, you talking to me now. Okay. So I always say the number 3, and we know what the number 3 represents with God. Ran into the third person. A good friend of mine. I had no idea what she was doing because we had lost touch. And I said, oh, my God, it is so amazing to see you. What are you? She said, girl, I've been a realtor for 8 years. I said, okay, God, let me move forward with this. So I was scared at first because I said, I don't know nothing about real estate besides my parents doing what they did, flip properties. My uncles, they would flip properties and, do all of that. But it was like foreign language. And I said, nah, I'm going to put it to the side. So as Jacob's father, as his health kept declining, I said, okay, let me get into this real estate thing. Then I said, nah, I'm not going to do it.
Just put your toe in.
I can't. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. So one Saturday morning, God woke me up like at 4:00 in the morning and said, do it. I woke up and said, I called my mom and dad. I called my brother. I said, I'm finna get into real estate. They was like, do it. I was like, okay. So fast forward, Jacob dad, he did pass away. And I said, okay, I got to take these classes. And it was during COVID. He passed away maybe 3 weeks before COVID hit. And that's when the whole world just shut completely down. We was at home and I just took the classes and I said,
wait a minute. So this move that we're in now is only a couple years old?
3 years and 2 months.
Lord. Wow. Listen, you got to hear the rest of this story, guys. All right, keep going. I'm sorry.
3 years and 2 months. So as time went on, I took the class, passed the class, did all of that. And so then I was just so exhausted because real estate is like a whole nother foreign language, okay? Then my girlfriend called me. She said, hey, we're gonna do spring break. This was in 2021. That's when the world started opening up just a little bit. She said, come down to Florida, come to Disney with me, bring Jacob. So I did that, took some time off. I said, when I get back, I'm going to go take the exam. I was scared. I was just like, God, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And he kept saying, do it, do it, do it. June the 6th of 2021, I went and took the exam. And I think the whole Charlotte Road could hear me. Because I passed the exam. So let's fast forward. Got into real estate, passed the exam, got my license, and I started off with Keller Williams. My first month and a half into real estate, I got my first listing. After my first listing, I put up 3 billboards across the city, probably a little bit more. Then, of course, here's this rookie coming into real estate. Well, who is this chick coming into real estate, dominating already? Wait a minute. So, of course, people was curious about me. And, of course, all this time, I'm still working. Remind you, I'm still working at Erlanger.
Wow.
Doing all this, taking on my son. By this time, he's 10, just like he lost his father when he was 9. And I said, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to continue with real estate or am I going to continue with Erlanger? So after that first closing, I had a conversation with my brother. He said, you can't serve 2 men. Either you're going to serve one or you're going to serve the other because you can't serve 2. What are you going to do? I said, I'm going to have to pray about it. So fast forward, mind you, I'm just into real estate within this time it's 3 months, okay? God told me, leave your job. I said, nah, I ain't ready for that. I said, I'm not ready. And God was just like, oh, you ready? I said, nah. By this time, I had 2 closings under my belt. Had just had one in September. I got my license in June, had one in September, had another one in December. God said, it's time to leave. I'm ready to use you. This is going to be your ministry. Mind you, I didn't listen to what he said. I was being disobedient. And as I was being disobedient, I got chastised. And when I say chastised, I mean, I continued to work at Erlanger. And it was so miserable going in there every single day because I knew what God had told me to do. I loved helping people. I enjoyed their stories. I had people saying, Tamekia, if it wasn't for you, why are we just not finding out about this? I said, I can't speak for everybody else. why no other realtor have ever told us I can't speak. I'm just doing what I was supposed to do. So what really got me was this young lady at closing. She cried. She cried because the area that she was living in, it was a rough neighborhood for her kids. And she grabbed me and held on tight and said, everybody that I know told me I would never own a home. But you believed in me. You had faith in me. You took your time and made sure I got through this process correctly. And here I am with my 4 kids getting out of this, and you put me in a decent neighborhood that I can raise my kids in.
Wow.
That's when I said, okay, this is my ministry. God placed me here to do this. So as time go on, mind you, I'm still working at Erlanger. Okay? So they ended up hiring someone else. I was a little disappointed because I knew I was capable of doing the job because everything had fell in my lap. And I asked for more money because I know my worth. I didn't get it. And God said, I told you to leave back in June. You didn't do it. I told you to leave in September. It was just like he was just in my ear. And I would cry every day. God, why are you doing this to me? And I woke up in the middle of the night. You know how you toss and turn in the middle of the night when you're not obedient? He said, you need to leave. And I was so concerned about the health insurance for my son because he had asthma and, the stuff that he needed, his checkups. And I talked to my pastor, Dr. Jeffrey T. Wilson. He said, leave. And I was so scared of the unknown because we all know when you're reliable on getting a paycheck every 2 weeks versus you don't know when you're going to get your next paycheck because you only get paid when you close.
Right.
That's it. So after that Monday morning, I went in and put in my 2-week notice. And when I did that, I was sitting in my office. I was hesitant to hit send. It took me like an hour and a half to hit send. And when I did it, it felt like 1,000,000 bricks fell off my shoulders. And God immediately said, I got you. Now it's time to work your ministry and walk in your purpose.
That's good.
So after that, and it brings chills to me because I know where I started from. After that, in July, my son, we took a 2-week trip to Hawaii. We relaxed. I went out there with my cousin. She lives in California. She goes every year for her birthday. I relaxed. I enjoyed it. And when I came back, we took another trip to South Carolina to see my girlfriend. And I received a phone call from my two business partners now. And we had just finished an event in South Carolina with the Omega Conclave. I never forget this. And my girlfriend walked into her house and I received a phone call. And my business partners now said, hey, what are you doing? I said, oh, recouping. And they said, how would you like to be a business partner? I said, do what now? I said, me? I said, I've only been in the business for just about a year and a half at the time. Probably, about a year and a half. I said, be a business partner what? They was like, a firm. We finna start our own firm. I said, do what now? Wait a minute. I said, me? They said, we like how you do business. We watch you. We see how you grow. We see how just a very professional person that you are. And I said, let me think about it. And I was just shocked because, they could have picked anybody else that's been in the real estate game for a long period of time, but they chose me.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there and talked to my girlfriend, and she said, do it. I said, I got to pray about this. That Monday, God said, this is just the beginning. And I called them back and said, I'll do it.
Wow.
So here I am,
How long have you guys been business partners now?
2 years. And it's been an amazing journey. It hasn't been easy because, of course, the enemy definitely tried to attack. But God, when he is in the midst and what God has for you, nothing, no one, nobody can stop it.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do we have an office here in Chattanooga, we also have an office in Alpharetta, Georgia. So me being in real estate for just 3 years and 2 months, I am the co-owner of a trio Black woman-led real estate firm in Chattanooga and in Alpharetta, Georgia.
I mean, one of the things, there's so much to thank you for sharing your story. There's just so many questions I have now for you.
Absolutely.
One question, though, I have for you is every time you talked about a big transition, the first thing that you said you did was pray.
Absolutely.
Where does that come from? Where does that come from inside of you? Has that always been part of your life? Prayer been a big
Absolutely,
part of your life?
because we know what God tells us. He tells us to acknowledge him, not in some, not in a little bit, but acknowledge him in all our ways, and he shall, not might, he shall direct our path. And that's what I did.
That's a word.
Absolutely.
So our paths cross.
Yes.
I am almost dumbfounded to know. I didn't know the timeline of your story. I literally thought that you've been a realtor for years and years and years. There's nothing about you that would have told me any different.
Wow.
So I'm sitting here. I think probably when we look at the video later, like my mouth is open because I'm sitting there like, because our paths cross as I'm in search after losing my father, in search for a home for my mother. And she was relocating from Memphis to Chattanooga. I know nothing about the real estate scene. Obviously, don't know anything about the realtors. But our path, God would have our paths to cross as we both were volunteering at an event for a friend.
That's right.
And we just happened to walk past one another.
That's right.
And I say, I was looking for a house for my mom. And then she tells me she's a realtor. She's done all these things. And she becomes my mom's realtor.
Wow.
Like immediately. And when I say she cared for my mother as if my mother was her mother. And that was what my prayer was. That somebody, I don't know anything about real estate. And my mother was trusting me to know things that I didn't know. So I had to find someone that I could trust. And so I know my story is just one story for you. What do you love? Like, what do you love about doing this work? Like, I could see how it could be fulfilling. Like, what is it that you love about doing the work that you do?
What I love is that God put us here to be servants. And that is my ministry. I know to be a servant and to help other people, there's a need. And to see the joy, the love, the joyfulness, I would say all of it, because some people never thought that they would be homeowners. People, and it's the education part for me. I love to educate because people will always say, no, we were told we got to put 20% down. We got to put 15%. That's not true if you're a first-time home buyer. So it was the lack of knowledge. And I said, my people, they need to hear, they need to know that you don't have to try to save and go without. There are programs out here. So what I love about it is the education part of it, because people are in the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Seriously.
Yeah.
I remember buying my first house, and I met with the realtor I met with the first time, and we're talking, and I go, all right, I need to ask, how are you getting paid? I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea how to buy a house or even how the relationship with a realtor worked. And I needed someone to walk me through that. And so what you're doing is such an important gift to people, because you don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. And there's so many resources out here that people just don't know about.
Yeah.
And my grandmother always told me, you treat a person how you want to be treated. Regardless of how they treat you, you do it and watch God bless you. She would always tell me that.
Wow.
Those moments, regardless of how they treat you, they pop up in whatever vocation you have, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be some nuanced issues.
Absolutely.
So talk to us about how God shows up for you in those challenging times. Maybe a specific story comes to mind or something.
Well, of course, he definitely shows up. Even realtor from realtor, you have some that are jealous. You have some that are envious. But I know what God tells us. You keep your enemies close. And I would say he always intervened. And whatever a person or what they try to do, I always say no weapon formed against me shall prosper, and they don't, and I see it.
One of the things that I love about God, I used to tell people, I said that just because he's for me doesn't mean that he's against you. Right. That is his desire that we all prosper. And so the thing that he may have held off from you getting and allowing me to get was because you needed to marinate a little longer and I was ready. Right. And it's not that he cut you off, but that you weren't ready to glean and give him the glory, maybe.
Right.
And so, in real estate, I can understand that there's some challenges. What about families who show up and their heart is there, but maybe the resources aren't there? That has to be challenging to what is the steps that you walk people through to get them ready? So their heart is there, they're ready, but they really aren't on the natural side. They're not fiscally ready or resource rich ready.
And a lot of people that come to us or come to me, they are not ready. So what we do, we sit down and we have a real conversation. I don't sugarcoat it. You can't, because this is like the biggest purchase a person will ever make, is purchasing a home. So if they're not ready, we give them the resources that they need. We let them know, hey, you're almost there, but don't give up. And I have quite a few right now that are not ready. Started the process last year, but they'll be ready by the end of the year. And they said, Tamekia, due to you checking in on us, giving us the resources and telling me exactly what to do, and they do it. And one couple, they cannot wait till October get here, because that's when they'll be ready. And they said, we gonna have a story to tell. So it's moments like that really warms my heart, that people really take the resources that I give them or that my team gives them, and they take it to heed. Because again, like I said, they don't know.
One of the things too that I think about real estate is there's a few industries that people can work in that you really get to know the people you're working with. And I feel like you just made me think of it when you said this is the biggest purchase that most people are going to make. And
yes,
that is so true. And that's a scary thing.
Very
it's
scary.
Also exposing, to get a loan, you have to basically roll out everything in your past. And what's it mean for you, knowing that those emotions that someone's dealing with? How do you try to love people through that time as their realtor?
I hold their hand and I tell them when I meet with them, I'm going to be with you every step of the way. And I literally hold their hand from the beginning to the end. And even afterwards, I still keep in touch with them. Like her mom will call me, and when she calls me, I listen because she has a word from God. The last conversation that we had, she called me and said, "I'm so proud of you." And I don't mind sharing this. She said, "But you can't have everybody on your team, and everybody's not going to be for you." And when her mother speaks, you listen, because in the midst of that, it was a situation that occurred, and I went back to that phone call that her mother gave me. So I say once I become your realtor, we become family. You're stuck with me forever, literally.
And that's true. Like, I mean, I'm vouching. I didn't know it's not like we were friends for the duration of the time that I've been here. I literally met her that day, passing. I saw the billboards like everybody else, but I met her that day, and I'd heard her name and things that she's done in the community, but it wasn't until that moment. And I call it a God moment, right? We had this moment, and now I feel like I can call her if I have a question, and she'll call. When she told me, I was just talking to your mom. I'm like, about what? My mom was on this house now for a year, and it's some change. Like, what do y'all, But it was the care, and so in this role of being a realtor, you do have to expose so much of yourself, and so it's a blessing to know that you have a God-fearing realtor that you can trust to roll things out to. So
shout out to my realtor, Drew. Same thing. That the relationships are really important.
It's very important
in that process. That's a big transition from getting a paycheck every 2 weeks to getting a paycheck when you close on a home.
Absolutely.
And there is a sense of the reward's very high, but also there can be seasons and there can be droughts.
Absolutely.
What does it look like for you to continue to be faithful in your work in those seasons where it might feel like more of a drought than a rainstorm?
Well, I can speak for that, and I don't have anything to hide. Just this past 3.5, 4 months ago, it was like that for me. Very stressful, but I didn't lose my faith. I kept praying and trusting God, because when the interest rates went up, a lot of people was like, I'm scared of this mortgage. What is this, $3,000 a month? Wait a minute. And a couple of years ago, I could have got this for maybe $2,100 a month. So we did. For people that say they didn't go through a drought, yes, they did, because nobody was buying because the interest rates were too high. But at the same time, I kept my faith. I knew I had my son. I take care of my son, and God told me it's going to be okay. But, sometimes God has to intervene, and I wouldn't say, sometimes when you're going too fast, things just start happening. Sometimes God got to stop you too. He intervenes and say, wait a minute, time out. Let me sit you down for a minute. Not saying that the pride thing, because this lady just yesterday, she told me, she said, you stayed the same the whole entire time. She said, you making all this money, but you had changed. And I said, no, it's not me. But let me go back to that. Even in the midst of the drought, God was still faithful. I never went without. Close friends and families, if I needed something, I could reach out to them and they was there. So God he remains faithful through it all. Because you will, even as business owner of a firm, if your agents are not making anything, you're not making anything. You still got bills. And through it all, we still were everything was still done and paid on time. God is faithful through it all. And now, as I say, God, he allows us to go through things. I think sometimes when you're making a lot of money, sometimes you don't respect it. And this lesson that I went through these past 4 months, and I'm not ashamed to tell it, I learned my lesson, and now I respect a lot of things much more than I did. Somebody called and said, hey, I need this. Okay, you got it here, whatever you need. But now, when you learn and you sit and God gets your attention and refocus you, because sometimes you can lose your focus in the midst of making so much money. But God does, he reminds you, I am God and I'm still in control. Let me stop this for just a second.
He calls us all to be good stewards. Sometimes people, only think about stewards through money, but it's really all resources, your time, your talents, whatever. And so he's calling us to be good stewards. And so maybe he paused us, to kind of start thinking about stewardship. Like, I'm going to allow you to be blessed with this.
Yes.
But I'm also going to give you the directions. I'm going to give you the who. I'm going to give you the when. I'm going to give you the how. I, too, am going through something a little bit similar because I'm a giver. I'm just a giver. And God said my principle is you reap what you sow.
Right.
If you're always sowing, you're out of order with what I said. I said you will reap what you sow. And you're never allowing anyone who I have ordered to sow.
That's right.
You're not allowing them to sow because you
That's
won't
right.
reap. You will only keep sowing.
Exactly.
And so you're out of my order. And so that's another lens for somebody maybe to look at stewardship. It's nothing wrong with being a giver, but also you giving all the time, maybe blocking somebody else's lesson that God is teaching them to give, because you won't let them give to you. You won't let them serve you. You won't let them, you just keep giving.
Yes.
Yeah.
I work with one of the things we do at the Faith Co-op is work with recent college grads, and they begin in their careers trying to figure out life. And I said, and we help them find places to live and food to eat. I said, this is a season where you're learning to receive, because it just as much as we're called to be generous and give, part of being part of the body of Christ is sometimes we're called to receive those gifts.
Yeah.
And I think it's right. It's both give and take. That's a stewardship piece.
Yeah, it can be tough.
Yeah.
It can be very tough.
Yeah.
Very tough.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about with that is just that move from being an independent real estate agent by yourself to being a partner with other partners to run a business together. How do you guys navigate the big decisions that you have to make as a firm together, and what's that look like to be honest and truthful and true to the business, but also it's not all on you. You have a team that has to make that decision. What's that look like for you to trust those on your team to make those hard decisions that you guys have to make as a team?
They are two amazing, phenomenal women. Every time we meet, we always pray. That's the first thing that we do. Whether if it's on a Zoom or in person, we pray. And it's so funny that when you're in line with someone, you're all on one accord. And when one is thinking, the other's like, we'll be sending an email or a text and be like, I was just thinking the same thing. So we're all on one accord when it comes to the business. And we always say this was God doing. He put us together. And we know what God put together, no man can come between. And we actually have a phenomenal relationship, me and my other two business partners.
How is the transition to now having real estate agents that work for you, and now not only are you working for yourself, but now you're managing?
Ooh.
What have you learned in that process?
Ooh, a lot. Ooh, it's a lot. As I was telling a good friend of mine, my guy friend, last night, I told him it costs to be the boss. Yeah. It can be challenging because you have so many state laws, so many rules, so many regulations that you have to go by, especially with the upcoming changes right now in the real estate game. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. And we just got to push through, and we just got to move forward. But it's a lot of hard work.
There's a lot of personalities too. I used to tell people, I said, God, I love you, but some of your children, some of your children need another daycare. But so when, you think about realtors having totally different type of personalities and temperaments. In order to be able to sell to a variety of markets, you have to have a variety of people represented on your team. What is it like to manage through maybe a godly lens? Like, what is it like to manage all of those personalities and bring out the best in those people?
It can definitely be a challenge. because we all come different backgrounds, learn differently. And, we have agents in Atlanta, we have them here. So it's definitely a challenge every day. But when we meet with them, we let them know our expectations. And they get it. And they always talk about me. Oh, we know when she sent out an email, what that mean, when she sent out this. So they know that it's all about business. We all are adults. And we're here to do one thing. And let's go out here and serve people, and let's make these people happy. But it can definitely be a challenge, Lucretia.
Oh,
It's definitely a challenge.
I think it's very important, regardless of vocation, that, as we said earlier, Jonathan, that like we recognize every individual was created for a purpose, right? Yeah. And so when I see you the way God sees you, then I'm not trying to fix you. I don't think that there's something wrong with you. Like, I'm looking at you and I'm going, for whatever reason, God knew that you needed to be created. God, help me to see.
Yeah. Right.
Help me to see in this moment what you see. Because you don't want to damage people.
Right.
In your journey, in our journeys, we don't want to damage people.
Right.
And as believers, we want to be a testament to who God is and the love that God has. So I definitely hear you there.
This is a question that I just was thinking about as you've been sharing your story. Oftentimes I meet with people around town and they say, I wish I would just hear directly from God to know what to do and what decision to make and when to make a transition, but I can't hear him. And you talked often about how you hear from the Lord. And sometimes we make that only things that happen on Sunday when we're at church that we can hear from God, that when the pastor's preaching or whatever. For you, what does it mean for you to cultivate a life that you feel like you're in constant communication with the Father, where He's telling you things? How do you know it's the voice from God? As you're telling us your story, that just kept resonating with me. Is like hearing from God is a discipline that you have built into your life. I think goes with prayer, but I'd just love to know, what does it mean for you to hear from the Father?
It means a lot when you have that personal relationship with Him, and when you know you are a child of God, He speaks to you. Mm-hmm. It's that personal relationship. Mm-hmm. Gotta have that person. I can't speak on everybody else's or what type, but for me, it's that personal relationship. It's reading the Word of God, because I know the Word of God is my sword. I know that is my weapon. And I know if I don't listen to Him, I know what the consequences are. Mm-hmm. But when you have that personal relationship, you know when He's speaking.
Mm-hmm. And He shows up in our normal everyday lives.
Yes, He does.
I asked that same question to Ladarius Price. I don't know if you know Ladarius.
I do.
And the way he said it, I thought it was really helpful for me. He asked the people we were in the room, he goes, hey, if Jonathan and I were on the other side of the wall and one of us laughed, would you be able to tell which one of these laughs was Jonathan and which one was Ladarius? Said, I think we could probably figure that out. And I said, it's kind of like that's what it is with God. Is if you spend time with Him and you're in a relationship with Him, and as you're reading, we get to know who God is and what He cares about when we actually read His Word. When we when we read the thing He gave us to know Him, where I can actually then discern the voice that's from God and the voice that's from me.
That's right.
Like I start knowing, that's hard to hear, but that's from God.
Absolutely.
And I love your wrestling with that, Matt. It just reminds me of the Jonah story, right? It's just like something clearly being told to you that you were fighting, and you're not the only one that's done that before.
Oh, fighting. I think that may have been an understatement. I don't know what I was doing, but I was definitely going against what He was telling me. And then once you listen, that's the thing. Everything falls in place for you. And you know it's God, because when God bless, there's no sorrow behind it.
That's right.
And when we try to do it, we catch hell, high water. I mean, it's even purchasing a car, getting into a relationship, purchasing a house, whatever it may be. It's just like when God bless you, everything falls in place. And that's how you know it's Him.
Do you have a favorite like Bible story or Bible verse that you turn to?
Oh, I love it, LaGrecia. I can go to several. Oh, let's see. But one of my favorites that's really dear to me is the Book of Job.
Mm.
And I can relate how he lost everything, and then look what God did to him at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Blessed him
Mm.
abundantly. The Book of Job is really dear to me because I can relate
Mm.
having it all, not wanting for nothing, and then losing it all,
Mm.
and then coming back from that, and how God is blessings on blessings on blessings is coming.
Yeah.
So I would say the Book of Job.
Love that. One of my favorites.
It is good.
It's the ultimate.
So I'm just getting to know you today, but one thing that's just standing out, even in your job at Erlanger, is you like walking with people through hard seasons.
I do.
And, I think that's people who have that, that's a great way to mirror the Father.
Mm-hmm.
Psalm 23 is an important verse to me, where even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the way people see Jesus is when we do that with them. And so I hear, like, not that buying a house is a hard thing, but it can be a really eye-opening experience and really hard. Like you said, like some of the people you're journeying with for a really long time. At Erlanger, it sounded like you're walking with people through big decisions in their medical life. And so, man, that's a gifting God's given you, and something that He's put on your heart that not everyone has, and that is worth being celebrated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I say it hasn't been easy. It's been challenging, but I kept my faith, my trust in God, because that's all I had. And I know without faith, it is impossible to please God. So I do the best that I can in this gift that He's given me, and I walk in my purpose. I try to. I'm not perfect, and don't get me, I'm definitely not perfect, but I definitely try to do what I can to be a servant to other people.
Listen, I personally want to thank you again, just for being the person that you are, showing up for my family in a time that was extremely emotional and a whole lot of things. And I'm not gonna belabor that because I'm gonna start crying. And this is
please don't.
This is a mantra on here. The I'm not gonna cry mantra.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. But to know that, not only are you helping people to move into homes around our city and even in Georgia, but that you're helping to create legacy moments where people in their trajectory, in their generations, in their lineage, it might not have been seen. And then God will take you in this role. It's just a tiny role in somebody's story, but it turns the trajectory of their entire family. To be that pivotal is very important. And I'm glad that we have people in the role like you with the heart of God, taking a stand, but making an important indention in the lives of people every day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I would say thank you for entrusting me with your mom in that big move. Thank you.
Listen, this has been another episode of the Weekday Saints podcast. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode, where we'll be talking to some amazing people here in Chattanooga about how God is showing up in their everyday work. See ya.